The air conditioning inside the conference room was set too low, probably to keep nervous sweat at bay. I felt frozen anyway, notes in my palm shaking as the words I meant to say jammed up somewhere between my stomach and throat. The room overflowed with rows of men in tucked shirts, women in sharp blazers, gleaming surfaces, an army of investors in Mumbai's digital heart. I looked for a friendly face, found only glowing screens and flickering impatience. When I stepped up, the click of my shoes echoed off marble as if the floor itself was telling me I didn't belong. My name sounded smaller out loud than it did in my head. Hi, I'm Arvind. I'm a sound designer and my voice snatched at something bright, some confident edge, but the line fell flat. I tried to steady myself. My company, AuralMagic, builds immersive audio landscapes. We want to bring state-of-the-art sound experiences to Indian cinema, gaming, museums, anyone who wants to hear the world differently. Somehow, it felt like I'd said it already to 1,000 skeptical faces. The slides behind me blinked up, displaying a dummy 3D render of the soundscapes I'd spent a year creating in my rented Antari flat. The logos of past freelance clients, minuscule scattered. I watched the nose of one investor crumple ever so slightly, the faintest tick of skepticism. How is this different from what existing sound studios do? A woman in the second row asked. Her voice was crisp like a snapped breadstick. I tried to explain. I stumbled over technical jargon, psychoacoustics, binaural recording, interactive audio layers. I heard my mother's voice inside my head, familiar and scornful. Ye bai koi kam hai avi sound. Kaya karoji sound car. A man in the back raised a lazy eyebrow. So you want money for noises, basically. Laughter, mostly muffled, slid through the crowd. My mouth was dry, my tongue felt like cardboard. I make sonic experiences, I said, feet shuffling on marble, not just background sounds, stories using. The moderator cut in, and your revenue stream. I clicked ahead, nothing looked impressive, graphs with too few numbers. A portfolio of passion projects, a short film I'd scored, a tiny VR meditation app, pennies, below minimum wage, and everyone here could smell it. After 5 more questions, none kind, they thanked me, polite but final. I left the stage to the discreet shuffle of laptops closing, shoulders turning, the next eager startup behind me already fidgeting at the wings. Outside, monsoon rain matched the mood, insistent, unrelenting. I tried to call my mother. She didn't pick up, but I could imagine what she'd say, her sigh drawing out over the staticky line, her disappointment buzzing louder than any storm. On the auto home, the city blurred past, neon reflected in puddles. The streets throbbed with auto horns and whistling traffic police. By the time I reached my building, water sloshed in my sneakers. The tall stairs, stone, ancient, smelled of wet dust and coriander. Inside, my family huddled together in our 2 rooms. Dad reading some faded cricket magazine, Amy prepping naan at our single-burner stove, my sister Shruti scrolling through memes on her phone even as the screen flickered. Well, Dad's anticipatory glance. Amy paused, ladle held in oily air. I didn't have to answer. The slump of my shoulders was enough, and Shruti gave a little snort. Kitnagar gay bye. At least try for a software job now, nah. Amy, heavy with defeat, said nothing. Dad turned a page. It was almost a relief. Even disappointment after a while becomes lighter than anger. At night on my bunk, I stared at the ceiling and listened to the city's undertow, trains on nearby tracks, pressure cookers, rainwater spluttering in broken pipes. I thought of the investors' laughter, the click of their pens. In the darkness, I replayed it until my ears rang. But something stayed alive inside me. Maybe it was pride or stupidity, or maybe the belief that I could bend a world that had only offered resistance. Work came in drips and splashes. I hustled, days filled with low-budget YouTube channels, wedding videos, local ad jingles. Nobody paid well enough. Sometimes sound wasn't important, they'd say, or just add stock music beta. I read voraciously, tutorials on surround sound, interviews with Hollywood designers, manuals for software I couldn't afford. At nights when the family slept, I'd put on headphones and build sound universes on a second-hand laptop. Rain over ancient temples, market cacophony, the hush before monsoon thunder. I made virtual spaces in my mind, sculpted silence and storm. Nobody listened. On Sundays, I met other strugglers, Dinesh, who did VFX, Mayra, who mixed for web series. Sanjana, whose boss still called her Sound Girl. We built each other up, shared hacks, gigs, sometimes just chai and a place to vent. In that traffic-jammed grey economy of moonlighters, we found a kind of battered hope. But at home, all my work sounded like failure. When neighbors came for chai, Ami called to Shruti, Bai is still upstairs doing his computer wala noises. She said it with a half smile, but I heard the hope leaking from her body. Uncles asked her every wedding, Arvind to kuch stable career nohai paktarab tak. It hurt every time someone asked if I was still at it. I bristled, pulled further away. Years pass quickly when measured in deadlines missed and bills paid just in time. My 20s blurred, cities shifting, rickety rentals, patched equipment, friendships pressed by hunger and time. Then, the break. A documentary producer, foreign, working on a film about Mumbai's disappearing textile mills, heard my soundscape reel. She needed the heartbeat of a city, real and surreal, and she wanted sound to lead, not follow. The pay wasn't princely, but enough to stop worrying if I could cover groceries. I poured months into the project, sampled factory echoes, spun metal clanks with field recordings, built sound sculptures from railways, looms, street vendors, crows at dawn. My world shrank to layers of hiss and hum, every bus horn and drizzle woven into a larger story. When the film premiered, it won an award on the festival circuit. Other calls followed, first art films, then ad agencies with experimental briefs, finally a big-budget streaming thriller. My work spread. I started hiring Danish Mayera, others like us. We rented a tiny studio out of a grimy curler warehouse, knuckled down, and made a little magic. Every milestone came with its own doubt. Still, my family couldn't quite recognize what I was becoming. He does some computer sound, Ami told relatives, voice uncertain. I sent money home, tried to share little victories. Sometimes, at festivals, I could spot my name flickering in white credits. Dad said he watched, but he never said if he liked it. Shruti smiled, sometimes even bragged to friends, but only when I couldn't hear. Success, I learned, returns in increments, never a single shining event, until one arrived. It began as a rumor. The festival, Mumbai's most hallowed ground for film and technology, was starting a new showcase, Sonic Realities. They sought Indian pioneers for immersive storytelling. Submissions rolled in from across the country, studios with deep pockets and connections I'd only dreamed about. The day the email came, I was certain it was a mistake. We are pleased to announce AuralMagic as a featured creator for Sonic Realities 2022. I read it aloud 4 times, heart thudding. This wasn't a jury's nod or a line in credits. This was the big room, the Skyline View Auditorium, the city's attention. I called Ami, babbled the news. She congratulated me, but her voice was hesitant, disbelieving. Achha hi beta. Aapko kush ho to hum by. She didn't really understand, not yet. In the weeks that followed, our tiny warehouse swelled with excitement and dread. My team worked double shifts. We designed 3 interactive sound rooms. The mill, echoes of old Mumbai industry, the city, a waking dream of honks and market calls, and the sea, tide and wind, the song of fishermen before dawn. No visuals, just sound and darkness. People would stand, close their eyes, and the world would build itself in their minds. Every detail mattered. Indian audiences weren't used to sound being the star. If we failed, I would fail in front of an entire city. Outside, my family was quietly baffled. Ami prayed for me to find something stable. Dad went to the temple more often than usual. The night before the event, I hardly slept, nerves ricocheting around my chest. My clothes were freshly pressed for once. The festival venue was all glass and steel, built atop the ruins of a textile mill. The setting felt symbolic, old Mumbai bones under new ambitions. The crowd was a mix of students, filmmakers, expats, socialites. Sponsors crowded the entry. Billboards screamed about the future of immersive media. Ami and Dad came dressed in their best. Shruti tagged along, phone glued to her palm. I watched them step into the lobby, uncertain in a world designed for someone else. Inside the Sonic Realities zone, it was dark, intentionally so. The 3 sound rooms were shaped like bent tubes, their interiors lined in black foam, headphones and sensors at every station. We dimmed the lights further to ease people into the experience. Tech staff herded in the first batch, the festival jury, a few skeptical journalists, and to my shock, the man who'd laughed at my investor pitch 5 years before. His receding hairline and bespoke shirt screamed seniority, but his eyes were already darting, bored, as he slipped on the headphones. I swallowed, tried to fix my tie, and waited outside the tube, pulse banging in my ears. My family hovered near the exit, awkward but eager. 10 minutes crawled by, the only sound the faintest rumbling from inside the insulated tube. Then the doors hissed open. It is a strange thing, witnessing people emerge from pure sound into a world of light. The first faces were taught silent processing. The old investor stepped out, blinking, and caught my eye. His expression was stripped of snideness. It was like I was standing inside time. How did you? He trailed off, reaching for words. The jury members nodded. The lead curator, a woman known for icy critique, took off her headset and simply said, transformative. I've never experienced Mumbai this way. A journalist, still holding his headphones, asked if he could speak with me on camera. You built the whole experience, you and your team. I nodded. They asked how I did it, and I told them about binaural mics, fieldwork, countless unpaid years chasing the pulse of the city. My family watched from the side, hesitant to approach. Then Shruti, wide-eyed, whispered, "They're saying your name on the loudspeaker." Ami came up, confusion shifting into awe. Sab log tumher bar main bart kar ra hain, this is your calm. People are lining up. Dad for once didn't say anything. He simply put his hand on my shoulder, his grip fierce. Before I could reply, the festival curator beckoned my parents and introduced them to sponsors, artists, media. He explained my role, lead sound designer, innovator, driving force behind this showcase. Cameras flashed, someone handed Shruti a festival pass. As the night wore on, the sound rooms filled and emptied, filled again. Attendees listened, laughed, some emerged wiping tears. A gallery owner offered to stage the soundscapes in Europe. A gaming CEO wanted to license our software. My phone pulsed all night, messages from old classmates, estranged cousins, film school colleagues. Suddenly, the sound guy was trending. Near midnight, I found my mother leaning against the marble rail, watching the city's skyline shine. All these years, we did not know what you were doing. People used to laugh, Beta. Family, neighbors, teachers. Her eyes glistened. Look at them now. She gestured at the crowded tube, the queue snaking through the lobby. You made this city listen. I stood silent beside her, overcome. The investor who'd once mocked me came up, hand extended. I was wrong, Arvind, you made something real. If you ever need support. He didn't finish. The apology was in the gesture. On the long drive home that night, I replayed that moment. The hush after applause, the shocked pride in my parents' posture, Shruti's delighted grin as she posted photos online. For the first time in years, the streets outside felt lighter, alive, as if every horn and raindrop was part of my own secret orchestra. The months that followed brought more work, accolades, money at last. Our warehouse became a proper studio, my team growing like drowsy seeds, suddenly hungry for the sun. Dad read every article with my name. Ami bragged about my projects to anyone who'd listen, her voice brimming with new pride. But what I wanted most was not the interviews or sponsorships. It was to reclaim something I'd lost in the years of struggle, a place in my own life, in the rooms I'd once tiptoed through out of shame. So one evening, I brought my parents and Shruti to the new studio. The sign read AuralMagic Studios in gold letters, blaring against the Mumbai dusk. Inside, I showed them my team at work, designers, editors, people just as stubborn and once invisible as me. I played them the city's orchestra, the throb of the mill, the heartbeat of trains, the melancholy of sea wind in digital symphony. This time they understood. You came back to us, Beta, Ami said, resting her head on my arm. You came home and you brought something wonderful. The world, it seemed, could be rebuilt, first from scattered echoes, then from the music of belief. As Mumbai's night pressed against the studio windows, I let myself savor the quiet symphony of acceptance, at last whole after all.